with them on the subcommittee meeting, and George and Tori are here to talk about the application. And the good news on this is that jobs are still being created on the downsizing of this warehouse. Tori, do you want to lead in?
Yes, so George, I'll let you present a second, but thank you for the opportunity to submit this. As you know, Cortec is a growing manufacturer here in the county that we have been lucky enough to retain and to expand operations. I want to remind the IDA that they have been courted numerous times by other states where their business actually is closer to the end user. However, this location continues to be a viable option for him to expand. So this pilot incentive is really imperative for us to continue supporting his operations, not just to retain, but to estimate a larger building. In the meantime, I believe between the end design, the cost, and to what impact that would have on Route 50 and the retaining wall, just the cosmetics of what that would do to Route 50, George really reevaluated what that looked like. In the interim, he's leasing 10,000 square feet in Fairchild Square for his business expansion, which he had come to saying was imperative to happen. This application is for 14,100 square feet of manufacturing, which is about half of the original proposed size. And we ask that you consider this pilot accordingly. George, would you like to add in?
Yeah, that pretty much covers it. I would say that the business, the other pilot on Lot B didn't come to fruition really because of some timing of the business. The orders came in faster than we anticipated and faster than we could develop Lot B. So I was in a position that we had to go get 10,000 square feet space down in Clifton Park to satisfy orders. So then it became a little bit more practical to look at 14,000 square feet extension on the back of our present building, which can happen rather quickly and rather inexpensively compared to developing Lot B from the ground up. So that's what we're seeking the pilot for, is the extension to Lot A.
So George, the project is about 1.5 million, 1.7 in that neighborhood.
Yeah, that's what I'm estimating. It's going to be just a basic warehouse. There's not going to be a lot of mechanical, electrical, plumbing going into it. Actually, no plumbing at all. So we're hoping that it comes in around 1.5 million, about 6 months development time. We have some orders in the fourth quarter this year that we'd like to put there. Otherwise, we have to go find other warehouse space. We do have a backup plan. It's outside the county where we could go put these upcoming orders in, either on a temporary basis or a long-term basis. But it's more ideal if we have it right in our own campus and able to show customers along with everything else that we're doing.
Okay. Could you refresh our memory about the need to build this on your location as opposed to going out of state, with your business in general?
Yeah, there's pros and cons to however you look at it. We have customers in San Diego, Caterpillar, which is a division of, it's Solar Gas Turbine, a division of Caterpillar. We have South Carolina, where a lot of our GE equipment ends up going in concert with whatever gets placed out of Schenectady as well. And then Mitsubishi Power Systems America is in Orlando in Florida. So we have customers spread out throughout the country. So far, we're doing pretty good attracting them to New York State and Saratoga County and coming up to visit. The pros about developing all of our business and manufacturing in one site is that when they come to one location, they could see everything that we're doing. We're doing quite a diverse spectrum of products for the power industry and power plants and turbine OEMs. The downside is that there is school of thought. We had a facility in South Carolina, and we could develop that and start moving product closer to their engineers and their procurement people in some cases. So Right now, the fastest option would be to, honestly build 14,000 square feet out the back of the present facility. And it would allow us to move our large systems. The plan is still essentially the same. It's move our medium-sized systems which are up to about 8 to 10 ton in weight, 20 by 10 feet in size. And then our large systems, which go up to 32 tons and about 65 by 15 foot in size that are in current production and kind of fragmented in different locations right now. So this would help us complete moving the large frame systems into Ballston Spa. The medium-sized equipment right now is presently in the rental space down in Clifton Park. So.
And some of the subsidiaries, or not in subsidiaries, but ancillary businesses that you do business with, some of the other local businesses in the county as well. You were mentioning Stonebridge.
Yeah, Stonebridge has been a beneficiary. That's a good example of somebody that we've able to develop as a supplier for our larger base systems. They're doing a lot of the steel work. We're hoping to develop more of that steel work there. With the large frame systems, due to the weight of all the equipment, particularly the steel, you have to develop local suppliers. Otherwise, the transport costs could really get you. So, if we did move elsewhere, we have to leverage other suppliers, so there would be a secondary impact there.
Okay.
And George, attracting talent is not a challenge for you right now. I know you mentioned on our committee meeting that you were the beneficiary of receiving some talent from General Electric.
Yeah, GE, 18 months ago, 2 years, they were in a period where they were downsizing. We were able to pick up some pretty good talented people. They weren't inexpensive investments, but the talent pool was pretty high. Most of the jobs that we've created, though, have been in the technician, assembly technician, test technician, electricians, fitters, highly skilled type production people over the last few years. So we've been doing pretty good attracting those type of jobs as well.
George, do you mind if I ask, as far as for the record, I know the application has been sent out and people around the table have seen it, but can you just tell what the process is, what your manufacturing process is, what the business is, what you supply?
In the most general terms, it's systems, subsystems, packaged subsystems, and equipment for power plants. And if you dive deeper into that, it's could be characterized by gas turbine, steam turbine, wind turbine, subsystems and equipment. If you dive deeper into what the products actually are, we do a rainbow of things from electrical control panels, customized motor starters for large DC motors that you just can't buy things off the shelf for. About 40 to 50% of our business over the last few years, and most of the growth has been in fire protection systems. So we're doing a lot of fire protection for power plants. That's starting to branch off into other markets as well, industrial areas, like we did a project, and now a follow-up order for Finch Paper, protecting some of their machinery up there with fire protection systems we've developed for power plants. And but that fire protection is even branch off into very unique areas, including like historical homes and museum and data center protection. That isn't a substantial amount of revenue, but the potential is high for fire protection to keep growing. We're also very active in fuel. There's a lot of rainbow of products, but the big revenue generators are fire protection, then these large packaged subsystems for turbine work, which can be mechanical in nature, fire protection in nature, or switchgear control cab type products. The larger ones happen to be switchgear control cab type products.
Thank you.
Interesting.
Do you have municipal approvals for the building?
No, we've submitted for the town approval. We do expect that to go through pretty quick. The Lot A was approved originally for 40,000 square feet. We only developed 27,000, so the extra 14 is basically brings us to 41.
Right.
Right. Do you mind if I go through some questions on the application pages that George and Tori, I've got some of these things. I'm gonna need another application back from you after to amend some things I'm gonna go through right now.
Okay.
They're not really messy up. They're not gonna mess anything up, but they're just little things to catch if you don't mind, okay? And this is maybe a question, my first one would be for Mike or Jim. On page 7, it says, does the applicant or any related entity currently hold fee title to the project site? We hold title to it, but would it be considered, we're not talking fee title.
Right, we
Yeah.
probably have a leasehold interest in the property, so that, if that's correct, that question's been answered correctly.
Okay,
And if nothing else, we're a related entity based on our
all right,
relationship.
okay, thank you. Let's see. If you look with me, page 11, and we just go through the funding sources there. And I just think that this is just for my own thing later on as far as correction. Bank financing is the $1.5 million, but you've got a $1.7 million project. So that I'm looking at that second question or second fill in equity would be 0.2 million instead of unanswered.
Yeah.
Okay. And then brings us back down to the underneath. It says total source of funds for the project cost 1.7 million should be there. And then 0.2 million would be George's investment. 1.5 is right, but the percent of total cost be financed through public sector should be filled in as a 0.
Can I ask what the 0.2 is for the equity?
I know your total project, I don't know. Your total project is gonna be 1.7, you're financing 1.5, so you're coming up somewhere with, I'm assuming.
Where's the 1.7?
There's manufacturing
page 10.
equipment
It's on
and
page
there's
10.
soft costs, Mike. They're on page 10.
No, I saw that, but where that
100 for each.
equities, I don't know where that's coming from, it would be,
Okay.
would be those. Okay,
Yep,
Yeah,
makes sense.
I needed honestly, some guidance in filling out all these.
that's what I'm saying, I'm not going through, these are just little things, the quirky things that I've catch as I go along. But I want to make sure that the final application we have, because we're going to be dealing with, and the process, we've got this application to deal with in the next 10 years.
Yeah, I'm inherently an engineer, and I'm finding over time there's like 5 different ways of accounting things, right? You got accounting for the government,
All right.
accounting for your business operations, and now the IDA is, I can add that to the.
All right.
That's the government. They impose this on us.
Yes,
it
is. It's not us. I guess we're part of it.
I just, we have another project where something just came through regarding easements, and I just want to make sure on pages 8 and 9, it covers different easements, and here are different. Are there any easements on here that haven't been anything on the property itself?
No.
Okay.
The property is owned by CTI Properties, which is LLC we set up to own the land and the building. So we're basically eventually going to roll that into CTI Properties. The bank likes to, last time when we built, they gave us a credit line under Cortec, which we rarely tap. So we just tapped that for the construction and served as a short-term financing until we rolled the whole thing into the mortgage with the IDA.
Okay.
We'll probably do a similar strategy again.
The, on page 12, just correctly, these are correct. You get into what is the sales tax abatement, and it gets into what's the mortgage reporting tax exemption. Those are calculated correctly, and we always just look at that because they'll be on Dennis's chart on the end and they are entered correctly there.
All right, so Tori, you can give me some guidance on.
Absolutely.
Okay. I'll kind of fill out this properly.
Okay.
That'd be great.
Page 13, at the very top of that chart, that cost, and I'm thinking that should be 1.5 million. I don't know where the 1.6 came from this time.
You might have had 100,000 for the manufacturing equipment that was on page 10,
Yeah.
Could have been.
you know,
Okay.
so.
Plus 100. Equipment. Okay. And Jim, this is when we get in the middle of 13 is where I talked to you about the overlapping pilots for benefit of board members right now. We have an existing pilot for the first project. That's roughly, I think it's either third or fourth year that we are into on that one. So that land right now is the basis. The land value is the basis for the pilot payment. That land value is already going to be underneath this addition. So that will be already assessed for. All right. So in the new pilot, then we'll start off with the first pilot bill based upon the schedule that you've got here will be September of 2021. And at that time, we'll be into another year of the new pilot. So again, you're getting close to say that fourth year or fifth year of an existing pilot and a new 10-year starter. So somewhere midterm of the second pilot, the value of that first pilot, the assessment of the building and the land is going to come into play as being taxable.
Right.
All right.
I don't think we actually closed until January 2018.
I think it's like I said, second. There might be the bill that just went out was either I think it was maybe the.
I think it's year 3.
Three.
We're going into
Yeah.
now.
Because it says year 2 on this billing right here.
Okay, so we're going into the year 3 then. Okay. The cost.
Are they your wife's recipes?
Look at
No.
that. I mean, it's just, look, it's all color coded. He's so organized.
No.
It's very
You know,
impressive.
I strive for engineering also.
My desk looks.
Yeah.
Wow. That is the first I've seen this in 13 years.
Okay. How's my face? Does my face
First
make
time you
sense?
saw that, that started. There's a whole thing going on with him. It changes.
It's all new. Yes, it is. All right.
It's called the aging process.
Yeah.
Whoa.
He's examining himself in a lot of ways.
George, was mentioned, one of the questions came up about where you stand in the process with the town. We will need, the application mentioned, you may have seen there's a couple places that mentioned seeker. We'll need stuff from either from you or maybe Tori can get it. All right, when the planning board adopts seeker, takes on lead agency, which I'm assuming planning board is already lead agency. So they're going to do a neg deck. We'll need that to go to Jim so he can process a resolution for us at the next meeting,
Okay.
which will bring into the inducement into the project.
Okay. So if the planning board approves, say at the end of this month, you need exactly what again?
Just
They will pass not only approval of the building, the project, the site plan.
Yeah.
Simultaneously, they'll pass another resolution that is State Environmental Quality Review Act seeker,
Okay.
saying that they've reviewed the environmental impacts of this and they find it to be acceptable.
Okay.
We probably could use
Need a
both of
copy.
those things, yeah.
Okay.
And it's
you and I can talk on the
it's a
phone.
negative
All right.
declaration, but it's actually a good thing, a
Yeah.
neg deck. Right? Not
Okay.
a bad thing.
All right. And then on my end, I'm kind of close to putting out, some bids to collect actual hard data from general contractors. So this 1.5 million was like a rule of thumb based on the square footage and no plumbing.
Right.
But I probably will be solidifying those numbers relatively soon. So,
And that's the
Is
stuff that Jim and Mike will review and take into consider later as we start towards closing.
yeah, okay. So
When
it'll
you
be okay.
get those
It's-
numbers, get them to us.
Right, okay. Because these were like budgetary right
Mhm.
now based on square footage
Right.
and some other assumptions.
Okay. The seeker on there. One on page 15, this is just a little a quirky thing again. Right in the middle, shows right now there's 4 full-time employees at Usher's Road. And then it says the total is 5 underneath it. Just a typo. You see where I am?
Yeah.
Page 15.
Middle of the page.
All right. And then the last thing I had on that was just, again, the overlaps, but that's something that Jim takes care of, and I'll be discussing it with him because of the fact that he's got the pilots going on. Will this be an amended and restated or a supplemental?
I think it would be a separate pilot
Right.
for the addition. I think that's what we did last time.
All right. I think that's all I have. Except for a $250 check.
I have that.
Oh, boy.
Gotta look for the apple pies.
It's the orange one.
Okay. Any other questions?
Pat, what color did he put the check on?
Yellow. Caution.
Whoa. George, in terms of a job creation, where do we stand with that as well?
For
For the warehousing, you're projecting increased jobs on the warehousing end
Yeah.
and the application.
So
It's
the
pardon?
first year is 5 years, the
5 years.
second year is 9 years, and the third year was 12 years for a total of 26 positions. And they would be the skilled warehouse, they're kind of broken up.
26 positions?
Was that
No,
over
I
the
think that
3
was.
years, George?
Yeah, that math sounds a little high.
That's
No,
what we
that's
put.
it's 12.
George.
I think
25, right?
Mhm.
Tori,
I-
presented employment.
that's not how I read the application, but that's,
I read it the way Tori read it. 5 in year 1, 9 in year 2, and 12 in year 3.
Yeah.
Right?
yeah.
For a total of
So
26.
26?
Okay, so
Or that's
those are
cumulative?
No,
No, that's
no,
the
I
cumulative.
think
Those are the
That's the
total
total.
this year.
cumulative.
Right.
Cumulative.
Right.
Yeah.
I apologize.
Oh, I didn't read it that way.
Yeah, the application like has different ways in different sections, but
Mhm.
that would be cumulative.
From year
Yeah,
to year,
12
it's
total.
12
cumulative
year
right.
So
total.
the number is
I've hired
12.
years
12,
long.
right? Total number is 12.
for that building.
Yeah,
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Look,
This is a cumulative.
it can't really fit.
Tori and Mike
more
can,
than
can
that.
you
Yeah, we can do it,
get a hold of Mike and when you're ready to modify the application, we'll go from there.
George, I'll need signed pages on this too.
Yeah,
On
I
the
have a
back.
signed notarized copy, but we probably need to make the changes.
You can probably keep those signed pages as it is because they're not affected.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions of George and or Tori? The pilot that the applicant is looking for is a mortgage recording tax of $11,250. The preliminary sales tax it would be about $70,000, and the property taxes again is approximately $334,000. So a savings to Cortec would be in the neighborhood of $382,000 should we pass this pilot program. I would need a motion for us to go forward for a public hearing. I'm not sure when we should have a public hearing, should we decide to do that, because I don't know if we need to have the town approvals before we get into this, or should we wait for town approval?
When do you think you're gonna have those town approvals?
Yeah, I do expect them, and next planning board meeting. There's
Do you know when that is? Is it February or is it March is really what I'm.
I think it's February.
Can't you make it just subject to town
Yeah,
approval?
you can, yeah, I just, yeah, because we're gonna be very close to it.
Yeah.
It's gonna be
So
a
I'm sure
tight.
it's like next week.
I think the most important thing would be to make sure your numbers are final before we take any action, because whatever is approved is gonna be based on your project
Yeah.
costs.
I'd feel more comfortable. So I'm about to send out a bid package to general contractors and solidify those numbers. The building is one thing, but the crane, which is gonna be part of the building, it's gonna be a 40-ton crane, is gonna be like $400,000, $450,000. So I could have undershot here on the total.
Yeah, it's okay if you're over, but if you're under.
Yeah.
you can go
So
up.
does it make sense April might
I'm
make more sense?
gonna
Yeah,
get
as long as it doesn't
there's two
impact the
general
timing.
contractors that are lined up. I was gonna give them like 10 days to get me back a proposal. You know, I would probably send it out Wednesday or Thursday this week, and probably the end of the month. I'll
Same
have
thing
it.
with the crane.
The
Assuming
crane, we just got the numbers like before I went on vacation, so.
So it's not critical that we have a public hearing next month because you don't even have a timetable for groundbreaking at this point.
No, but
What's your timeline? What would
Yeah.
you like to see from the
I do have
contract?
some orders coming to, that need to hit production somewhere in some facility around September. Now, if we miss that window, you know, there's ongoing orders. So,
Yeah. So the application says that you like to be up and running in September, I think, of 220.
yeah, it's
How long
very
you gonna
aggressive.
take it to build this thing?
You know, it's really just foundation and a building
That's what I
shell.
thought, yeah.
So, you know, it should be inside 6 months. It could be as little as 4 months. There's really not a lot of plumbing or any finish work, so it's going to depend upon the cycle of the building package, the prefab metal building, and then the foundation.
Our next meeting is
10?
March the 10th. That would be too soon to have a public hearing. I would think if we don't have everything documented at that point. So we'd have to have the public meeting in April.
Yeah.
Does that fit into your
Yeah, I could
schedule?
do a lot in parallel, and if all goes well, and you know, I
We'll
still
also
have
have
some
the
bank
approvals,
financing
Yeah,
lined up as well.
Do you have your financing in place?
I have 3 banks that are interested. They've been chasing me for a number of months. Sequentially in my mind, I've got to get the general contractor's numbers.
Yeah.
Then I can next stop it.
We're trying to figure out how
Yeah,
we
I'm
can
not gonna
best
be here.
sequence for you.
That would give me a few weeks to get with the banks, get all my final numbers, and, you know,
That's good.
I'm coming back from
beginning in
Florida
April,
that day.
I should be all set.
All right.
You know, with the numbers.
You're leasing space from Mark Rokocki, one of the Fairchild buildings, or?
That's
yeah,
correct,
Which
yeah.
one?
20.
The 14?
It's
If we put the
318 Ushers.
21st.
It's the one closest to,
So once this building's done, are you gonna be moving those operations over here, or are you? gonna-
well, I had to sign a lease.
Right,
So I have to use that building.
Right,
in a
okay.
productive way.
okay,
The orders that we're gonna be putting in there right now, were being assembled out of county.
Yeah.
Right now, we're in a little bit of a lull, and we do not have any of the large frames right now. They pick back up in September. So,
This is gonna be for the large frame, the one at Clifton
Yeah.
Park is for the medium frame.
the ones in Clifton Park, medium frame. Now, this building extension could handle large or medium,
Right.
depending upon the mix that we have.
Yep.
We have one other order that you would characterize as large frame, but that happens prior to September. It's like a May, June shipper, and that's gonna be assembled out of county as well.
Like a motion to bring the Cortec application to a public hearing to be determined probably after we discuss. Motion second,
I'll second.
discussion on the motion to bring this forward.
You said that's
Do
gonna
we
be
have to
April
set a
14th?
particular date?
no,
No, we'd have to.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. What we'll do is, for the public hearing, why don't we, Mike, you and Tori and George get together and get the approvals first, but more than likely it's the public hearing would be in April. Decided what date that it's going to be at.
It would be in Boston Town Hall also.
Right. So, okay. George, thank you very much. Tori, thanks for your.
Mike, you want to check now?
It's on his yellow. So they're good.
Yes, and you could just give it to Scott then.
He's got another.
Or no, actually, right in front of you, Jeff will take care of the.
Wow.
He's making all the right moves. He's paying before.
Thanks, way to go, yeah.
We discount
No,
for
no,
cash.
Sorry, I was a little
Yeah,
late.
recorded and all that.
It actually took me longer to find where you guys were in this building that it took me to drive here. Yeah, they sent me downstairs.
Really?
Not a little.
Oh, that's what it used to be.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah,
And
thank
thanks,
you.
George. Good luck.
We've received most of our surveys back. I don't know, Mike, if there's any
Well,
outstanding.
The last
Is
one
it-
we have is 19 Railroad, and the thing most difficult with that is the fact that 19 Railroad Place has no employees per
Right.
se of their own. So they're looking at, in that building, they have tenants and
Yep.
employees. So looking at that. Then the only other thing we have a problem with is, and I don't know if Jeff talked to him, but Global Foundries, it did not want to go through a reporting on salary range, average salary, stuff like that.
I was gonna call him more for the bond activity, or what he's saying with that, but,
Well, I sent him an email, told him you were coming as an enforcer.
okay. I'll dress appropriately.
Put an eye after that one.
Were you talking to Lec on that, or who are you talking?
Who, Lexi, you mean?
Yeah.
No, Tom. Yeah, Tom, he had, and I told him that this is not something that we are just willy-nilly asking for information, that it's required for state reporting as we have. He goes, well, then he goes, you probably should have somebody ask me. So it wasn't enough for Mike Valentine to ask him in a phone call and a survey. So,
Really?
Interesting.
I can do that.
Who is this?
Global Foundries.
This is the first year they haven't provided it.
Well, because this is an odd year. We've got like 18 or 20 questions on the survey. In previous years, we've had 4.
Right.
You know, so it has been an expanded format to ask questions that Scott and Jeff will use on the Paris reporting to the state.
Right.
So we used to do this regularly. We'd have, Larry Benton and I did, we had 23, 25 questions year after year after year, and there was never a problem getting the information back from people. But because these are new folks and they haven't seen it before, and all they saw was 4 questions, really, it's easy. You know, sales tax, construction jobs, you know, full-time employees, and that was it. So,
The whole point is to get everything, all that information together in one spot, so that when we do the Paris reporting, it's a lot easier to pull all that stuff together. There's copies of the pilot bills here too that we have, all the towns, villages, cities,
yeah,
counties.
let me just pass that out.
They started to come in, I
Take
think.
Pass it. And the next thing,
Have they started to come in yet?
Yeah, that's what's coming around.
the ABO reporting forms, we have a conflict of interest form and a board of directors evaluation form that was emailed to everybody last week or 2. If you didn't fill it out and sign it already, before you leave today, I'll give Pat and Andrea, I'll give you a copy. Rod's already got one, Mike's got one. Just something we have to have done. So, and Walt
Walt
get
has sent
them.
his
Walt
in.
sent his to me already. He's emailed it to me. So that's it for the CEO report.
There's an additional one besides the
There
board
is.
performance?
Yeah, there's
Okay.
there's a board evaluation. Or there's a conflict of interest. I got it in here, Mike. Let me look for it.
That'd be great. You don't have to do it now, but before we go, I'd be happy to fill it out.
Yeah.
That's it.
Scott, do you have like a chart that compares like on the employee reporting, what was projected in applications versus what you're seeing on surveys? Or
That
something-
is part of the Paris reporting.
Yeah, I
That's
think-
where it comes out.
I think you need to circulate that because I know that the ABO expects that. That's one of the things you guys are looking at on an annual basis is, where companies are versus where they projected to be. So either, a chart or maybe just a report from you indicating what you're seeing based on the information you're getting
Actual versus
projected. Yeah.
projected. Yeah.
Because we're supposed to be, we have a recapture policy. We're supposed to be
Right.
enforcing it, which means that we're supposed to be looking at.
Is there, I don't know if in the Paris report, if there's a spot for that.
I don't know if there is, but we'd have to maybe go back to the application, but once we get them in there.
I feel like we used to get a spreadsheet with that data on it.
Yeah, we do value it, I'm pretty sure.
We do, because we do look at it. Thank you. Thank you, Scott. Jeff.
Okay. Financial report for January. not a lot of activity, just a handful of checks that we wrote. One thing I would mention is that we did pay for a bill for streaming services, and like we may have to reevaluate that as we go through the process. I know Scott was struggling to get it going this morning, making sure that the mute was hit when it was supposed to hit, rather than to continue to record. So we paid a couple $1,000, but I'm not sure if that's going to be the last bill for that service. Paid our professional staff. We had a couple of dues checks written in the month of January, and that was pretty much it for our activity. With respect to the audit, there are really no issues with the audit. The only thing that changed actually from our internal December reports is we had a survey on the lot that we're purchasing from Bridger Forest, which that was added to our cost basis anyways, or cost we have in the project, nothing major there. And the other thing that we have some bills from Jim's office for work he's done in the past, which will wind up being recorded in 2020 for those services, and that's pretty much it. We've written the check, just waiting for some signatures from our board to take care of Jim's outstanding invoice, and that's pretty much it. So there's no issues with the audit, and it should be completed relatively soon. And I don't know if you want, but I could send the audited statements out in between now and the next meeting to really just give everybody a look at it before we. I don't think we necessarily have to approve it either.
No, we usually look at it.
Yeah, but you do. Yeah, you wouldn't need to see it.
Yeah.
Is that something the finance committee usually does?
What do you mean,
I usually get a
the
copy.
auditors report
Yeah.
after they're done?
Yeah.
Yeah, we need
Yeah.
to approve
Yeah, I-
and accept that.
Okay. The only so I guess we would approve that at the March meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, put that on the agenda for that.
But I'll send them out ahead of time just so you can get a look at it.
Jeff, in regard to the dues, in light of the letter that we got from Selwig about
Nobody's
the,
seen that.
they haven't seen
No,
it.
I didn't give it to everybody. That went to you and to
Oh,
Scott.
okay. There's a letter that was sent to the Center for Economic Growth, and it's short, so I'll read it to it. Dear Mr. Kennedy, due to recent reconfiguration of the economic development priorities and initiatives within Saratoga County, we will not be renewing our $9,500 membership with the Center for Economic Growth. Thank you for your support and assistance throughout the years, and I wish you and your organization continued success going forward. Sincerely, Spencer Helwig, County Administrator. Copies to Prosperity Partnership, Saratoga County Capital Resource Corporation, and Saratoga County IDA. Letter dated February the 6th. We had submitted, we made a payment to this.
Yeah, we approved it at our January board meeting.
When a presentation was made.
The partnership, that's directly because of the partnership's reconfiguration. You know, their budget has gotten chopped, and
So for
Spencer
$500,
made $9,500.
$9,500.
So you had a separate membership with them, though,
Yes.
right? It
Yes.
wasn't connected to the
Yes.
county membership?
Yes.
Well, the
I
thing
think it
was
was a
combined.
cumulative.
Right, that's
It was
what
a
I'm
cumulative
wondering.
amount.
Because I know it
of
came
money.
up for the CRC as well when we first were asked to do it. I thought it was some kind of combined contribution.
It was
with the
they
county.
looked to say a
originally, yeah, I
countywide
remember that.
one, and they said, okay, with county IDA, with the county capital resource, and the county itself.
So were you each being shown separately as members, though?
Yes, invoiced separately also.
Okay,
But it was like a thing in the beginning
Right.
saying, hey,
right,
Well,
that's what I.
So we're,
Wasn't there a seat on the board or something too?
I don't know, Mike. I don't know.
so we're a member and the rest of the county is not?
That's what
Okay.
it is.
and they actually jumped it up about 3 months because it was paid last year in April. So it was kind of odd in the situation. It came in, they requested it in January
Mhm.
as compared to April last year when we paid it.
Well, I think they were
That
fighting
was-
some legislation down in Albany, and that's why they wanted the capital. They needed the money.
Expenses.
The CRC may still be a member. I know it's gonna come up on our next meeting.
Okay. All right. Any questions of Jeff? Thank you, Jeff. Project updates, activity applications pending projects. SCDC,
Yeah, thank you.
bless you. Study on the reuse of the rail of, to the Moreau Industrial Park. At our subcommittee meeting a month ago, or last month, We had a presentation from Dennis Brobson about the rail spur that we own that goes to the Moreau Industrial Park. And there's a request for a feasibility study to open up that rail line. And I think SCDC has done, and I'll let Tori and Todd speak of this in a minute. And they would like to look at the possibilities of opening up the rail line so it gives opportunity to open up the park for further advancement and use of the park. Dennis had brought this before us probably about a year ago, and we didn't take any action on it, but now I think they've been doing some due diligence on this project. And so I'll let Tori and welcome Supervisor from Moreau, Todd Kuzner. And you can speak to us about the project.
First of all, good morning. I appreciate the opportunity to address you this morning, and very much are pleased with your interest in considering our request for funding for a rail feasibility study. As you know, the industrial park's been in place for well over 20 years. We've had no success except for one tenant getting any viable tenants in the park. And I myself, I've been on the board. This is my 19th year, my second term as supervisor. And since taking over as supervisor, we've seen considerable more interest in the lots in the park. And along with that interest has been a key component of utilizing those lots in there, and that is rail. For all the proposals that SEDC has discussed with the town, as soon as they learn that we don't have access to rail any longer in the park, about 80% of those interested parties have no interest anymore. So we believe that by reactivating the rail, if it's feasible, we can expand, greatly enhance the opportunities for getting tenants in the park. And I know Tori will probably talk about this. We have somebody that is very close to locating in the park. We hope to hear within the next 4 or 5 weeks officially. And it's an industry that will require a lot of truck traffic coming into the park. And that alone will be an issue for the town of Moreau and with the residents that live near the industrial park. And so we believe that, I know there's been talk that some folks don't want the rail to be reactivated. I think that we can make the case to get the public on our side if we can demonstrate, number one, that we're going to have tenants in the park. We're going to do job creation. It's going to increase the tax base. And we have the potential to take a lot of that truck traffic off the highway. It'll be a very easy sell for our residents. So, you know, we're hopeful that you'll consider our request. And I don't know if you want to talk in greater detail about.
Yeah, I would just add that, you know, we have shown a lot more, I think, in 18 months than we have in 20 years combined. We have made the short list on several of those. And the final question is, when do you think is rail being talked about? Is there any appetite for this? Could this be potential? And honestly, I couldn't answer that. We have made great contacts with both state, federal, and community partners. They all go back to the CHA study, which is dated. The study proposed by Camoin Associates for $14,820. The information that will come back within that study helps position us to then apply for work with the Adirondack Greater Glens Falls Transit Corporation. Every municipality in Saratoga County is usually under the Capital District Transportation. Moreau is the only municipality that falls under the Greater Glens Falls. Aaron and I have worked together. Michael has worked together. We chatted as recently as last week. For whatever engineering costs are not included within the Camoin study, Aaron is willing to take a look at that and work with us to finalize those engineering costs and expenses. We've also had conversations with Ray Hessinger at DOT. The real main, problem is bringing this rail from Moreau Industrial Park south to connect to Canadian border across for our Canadian Pacific, across 197. All intents and purposes, this could be done because you never abandon the rail. There's certain things that we'll need to look at. The study really is the key to being able to identify anything else as we explore this opportunity. And to Supervisor's point, the industrial park has been there. The amount of residential that has gone up around it now has been pretty, right? Pretty significant. And so we know that getting the traffic in, identifying these opportunities, working with these companies, and to the distance from I-87 via truck route has really not, helped Moreau make the finalist list. We believe rail will be a great jumping point for these companies to secure and go into Moreau within the industrial plan use. All of the companies that have come in have been manufacturing, much like George's. The jobs that he creates are not just high tech and executive. They're for every one of our family, friends, and neighbors to be employed as skilled labor, clerical, engineering professionals. So the positions we're looking at and the companies that are looking at Moreau to fill those job creation voids so that a lot of people in those areas can actually start working closer to where they live. Again, rail is what really, we're really trying to kickstart that industrial park, and funding for the study would be the greatest help and benefit if you would kindly approve funding that to help us really move forward and see what else we can qualify for. This year, transportation has been given a huge federal budget. So unlike years past where we could come to you and say the study said this and it becomes shelf art, this year we can actually time it to qualify, to work with, and we have made great contacts in those agencies that are willing to come to Saratoga County and help us get through it, work through it. And we couple that with a private sector investment. Todd mentioned one project we're working on, and we also have two more that come in play. So the potential is great that we see, and I never want to be remiss in mentioning this is a huge retention opportunity for the manufacturers in the northern part of this county. Helping them be able to get product out the door, reducing any line item expenses for them helps not just retain them here, but gives them an opportunity to expand with their corporate relations too. So I just wanted to mention that.
And Tori, again, the request is for how much for the study?
$14,820.
And how long would that study take, do you believe?
Rob will have it done, completed back, and we'll do a presentation to you within 3 months.
For the 3 months, and then it's Camoin,
Yes,
here locally in Saratoga.
right in Saratoga County.
Is this the same study that was given to us last year?
Yes.
That I
Yeah.
filed away in my file drawer at home?
That's right.
Yes, that's
I have it at it's the corner of one of my desks, yeah.
Yeah.
And I did confirm with Mr. Camoin that the price still stands. It's still
Okay.
accurate.
So they didn't do a study? in the
No, they
past?
didn't, no,
They gave
it was just a proposal,
Got
yeah, the proposal.
I think it's consistent with our mission in every way. In fact, it's exciting. We're thinking about an opportunity for use of the rail in an industrial park, which hasn't seen any activity. And that we've talked about that part of the county
Right.
extensively. So I think it's consistent with our mission. I think it sounds like a prudent use of IDA resources to promote economic development, and at least push us along in that direction, that part of the county. I think it satisfies our objectives, in my opinion. It's a reasonable sum.
What is the study going to include? Required approvals, condition of the rail, is that going to be in
It'll give
there?
an overall, the conditions, it'll talk about the economic impact, the feasibility of where that really falls, the retention impact. It'll talk about the last study that was done from CHA and just kind of tie onto that.
Grant opportunities, will that be in there?
What grant opportunities may exist. And we have identified through the EDA and the DOT, they both have some pretty significant programs right now. The EDA's is interesting. They're coming in at 80% grant. And you can use the 130 money through DOT to actually backfill some of that. And we can also use USDA funding to come in because it's a municipal and a town project. They have some funding too. If we couple that with the private sector investors that are coming in, timing's always everything, right? We can have facts, we can have this information, but it just seems the timing now is not just doing a study and providing you a study and a feasibility, but actually marrying that up with some thresholds and programs out there federally and statewide that we could tap into for this.
Tori, is the timing such that something quicker than 3 months would be helpful, or?
Rob will try to get this done faster. We did have that conversation, but the timing does still work for us to do some
It seems to me they've got a lot of background information already. On this. So
My problem is I haven't looked at any of this in months. So
you've got 3 months.
No, I'm not prepared to vote on it today. I'd ask that it be tabled till we look at what we got from Camoin last year. I don't retain this stuff. I
The
retain
quote
my
from
client's
Camoin?
information.
A
The
quote,
ID
or yeah,
Another
They gave us
proposal?
something last
They gave
year
us a
that,
proposal.
yeah, just a
Yeah.
proposal.
I remember what it said. I
It's
don't
to,
have
it's
any
to update the
recollection.
CHA study that's
So
dated.
I'm not prepared to vote on it. I'll vote no. If you're gonna put it to a resolution, I'm not prepared to vote for it. It wasn't on the agenda. I don't think it's fair that we get dropped this in the morning without having any preparation for it. I may change my mind once I read it again, but I'm not gonna vote in favor of it because I'm not prepared to vote on it. I don't have enough information. We looked at this 6 months ago, 7 months ago.
It's longer than that.
Yeah.
Are you getting any help from the county economic committee and or your own town, Todd?
What we do, I did, when I put the budget together for this fiscal year, we did not need discussions at that time about the putting it toward a rail feasibility study, mainly because that wasn't a priority at the time for other purposes.
What's the distance between the Canadian Pacific line to Merle Park? How
It's
long?
about 4.1.
Well, it's the whole over, yeah, it's like five something coming from the south side of 197 going up into the park with a spur
it's
off.
right,
And
right.
there's another 1 mile that goes into the village.
Yeah. It's about, just to
About
get from a
6 miles
road down,
altogether.
yeah. From a road down is though is 4 and change.
Yes.
And the grants that have been talked about, that's federal, state, where are we?
Both, and the federal money can be used to match state money, which doesn't normally happen with grants. Usually they each have to have their own kind of percentage. So just the way that the funds came through the programs for this year through transportation, you can actually use that EDA money to, match the state grants.
Is there a sunset to that grant, those grants?
Yeah, it's for 2020 to look
2020.
at. It doesn't sunset, but to get in to be approved for all of those, they prefer you get those into the works in 2020 so your project's on the slate.
Now, this potential tenant that you're talking about in the next 4 weeks, it's not going to be predicated on
No,
rail
they were
because it's going to
definitely,
be years
no,
away.
exactly. They definitely realize it's something that we're talking about, that there's been no action. But again, we can't, we're just, the study that CHA did was so antiquated that we just can't use that. So this study is really just bringing it up into this, 20 years after where we are now, why it's still crucial, what this looks like. And again, it just sets the tone so that we can then go and do studies for the signals and the lights. There's funding for that, for the 197 crossing. There's the whole other issue of the construction, the revitalization of it. But basically, if this organization had abandoned the rail, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. Because it was never abandoned, it actually jumps us up 60% on the threshold of interest to fund, because we don't have to navigate all of that mucky water, if you will, to reactivate it. So it's a real favorable, from what I'm understanding from the federal and the state organizations aware of this and the conversations we've had, it's definitely a favorable, and to the short proximity of rail we're looking to reengage.
The other possibility is what's called a transportation improvement program. It would be to have the town of Monroe be a sponsor for tip funding on federal aid level. So, and that's not, it is a grant per se, but it's not a grant program like we're used to doing, but it's it would fund construction installation costs of the rail.
And the engineering.
Yeah.
And the town's, objective is to be proactive and forward-thinking. We have our sewer expansion that we were successful in getting approved. We got the financing for that, which is going to bring in, I think, enormous economic development along our commercial corridor coming off of exit 17. I mean, we're basically the last stop for development. People were developing exit 16, exit 18, 19. We've got enormous open land available for development for manufacturing along Route 9. And there's no question that having rail access to the park will position Monroe even more favorably for those large developers that are looking to locate in the town of Monroe, which is going to bring in, unquestionably, a lot of good paying jobs. And we've also heard, I've heard informally from across the river in Warren County that there's a major developer looking for a warehouse space that has rail access to cut their transportation costs, and they're looking at Monroe. So,
And that too couples with the retention that I spoke of earlier.
exactly.
There's a couple of our larger manufacturers that are actually leasing large warehouse spaces out of county, and that cost is not going down anytime soon. And we talk about competition and industry-wise, these guys are competitive in a corporate to stay alive. So anything that we can do, and it's not just one or two, there's probably 4 different manufacturers that I've spoken to in a 5-mile radius of that site, that even if they couldn't get it to their back door, having it a mile down the road would decrease their expenses significantly.
Is this an opportunity for us to get out of the rail business? Which I think we've been talking about for years.
This is a spectacular opportunity.
That's
The idea that we divest ourselves of that property, that it cost us less than $15,000 for an analysis to develop the northern part of the county, which has been short shift in my mind with a lot of stuff that we do. Is just a great idea.
Yeah, and we own the rail
We
now,
own
so
the
I
rail.
think it's
And they're
part
not
of our
asking us
duty
to build a
to know
railroad
what's
track.
required to
I
fix it and get
Yeah.
it back active again.
if it's an opportunity to divest ourselves of that liability. I think it's a liability because Mike's almost been killed trying to think like this.
Well,
He's been walking around.
Well, we missed that opportunity.
Well, he had his notes with him, so he knew how to get out of trouble. We're looking for another.
the old Mike or
the new Mike? Well, I don't know.
There are 2 other points though, and Supervisor mentioned it earlier about public oppositions from some people in that area. There will be people come out because they've encroached on that rail through there, and they're going to be used to using it. So, but that's
not our issue.
No, it isn't. That was my main point, and I'm saying that's what you're going to have on a local level with that. The other thing is we didn't talk about was that other 1-mile rail spur that has potential to tie into the village and the industries that are existing there. That's not the primary focus right now, and that's not the primary place to look at spend funds. But that has that potential should any of those industries that are in the village decide that they want to make, use of the rail access in the future. But it's a complicated connection, and more so than the other one.
And if I may add along the comment about the opposition, I know that's a concern for the IDA. They don't want to get in the middle of the turf war, so to speak, going on within our community. And so that's why the town board on February 11th passed unanimously. I don't know if you have a copy of it. I do have copies if you don't, of a resolution unanimously supporting a request to the IDA to fund this study. So I want you to know that it was 5-0 on that vote.
Put it on the rail in the future if it's worth it. Who would own the rail in the future if this rail?
That park, I think,
Wait.
right?
Oh.
Would it go to
The
the park or the
district
town?
That's why I was wondering.
Well, the other thing is you leave the
Not us.
park, you're out of the park
Yeah.
in a short distance. You hit that spur and then go back into that right of way, and then it's not like saying, okay, the town or whoever owns the park.
Does it become an extension of CP? Do they own it?
I don't know, I mean, you were talking about the vesting ownership, so I
Yeah, yeah.
figured I'd throw that out there.
Yeah, that's what I would think.
I don't
Whoever
know who's gonna
services
be
the rail.
That's a good
clamoring
question.
to
Take care of
Normally,
it afterwards.
We're not gonna own it. I don't know who is gonna own it. We're not gonna own it.
We have a
Develop it.
short rail or a short line carrier, and they are interested if this is something, depending on what the study says, we do have an operation interested in being a tenant in the park and providing that service.
so it's a tenant but not an owner.
They would own their own parcel.
Would
We're
they
talking about
own
the
a
rail itself.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes.
I think that's
Oh, yeah.
Rod's
The
question.
ownership.
I think
Yeah.
that's where you're getting to as well.
Special.
Who ultimately gets that? Who do we turn it over to? Or do we?
What was the question? I'm sorry. Who takes
If
over?
this was to go
Yeah.
forward, who would
Would end up
owning it? I would imagine it's going to be the people doing the work. And it's federal and state money going into the
I
town.
think so.
Does an entity grow out of that owns it? Or does it become CP Rails with a short line?
That's not our problem.
That's right, I would agree with that. It's down the track.
Yeah.
This is, in my mind, this is a very simple conveyance of a relatively rectangular piece of property.
Plus, we're getting ahead of
X number
ourselves
feet
on that
wide,
one.
X number of
That's,
feet long. We're gonna sell it to
Right.
somebody and somebody else is gonna figure out.
right, we're getting way ahead of ourselves. This is about
But there's no
stuff-
question that this is a step toward
Yes,
that.
towards
that-
that,
that
right,
Future,
right.
future goal.
Yeah,
It was a good thing the cost of that changed, from the proposal that was sent to us before. We're short 3 members today, and I have a tendency to agree with Andrea that it should be tabled to get the input from all 7 members of our committee, but I'm leaning in the sense that it's an opportunity for us to get, if we don't spend the money, if someone doesn't spend the money, we're going to be continually talking about this subject for a long time and for IDAs, the future IDAs. Whether it comes to fruition or not, I think $15,000 is a cheap price to pay for this type of study, for an opportunity for us to get out. I would have liked to have had 3 other members, our other 3 members chime in on this. But I don't know if timing is of the essence on this. If grants are only available for 2020, we are still early into the year. If we didn't vote on this until the March meeting, can get Camoin to speed up his study. I don't know.
Yeah, we have
You're losing 4 weeks.
we have a May 31st deadline for the USDA. And if the study wasn't completed, we could show it was a motion and what it was and still submit it. But it's not as favorable as those that are sent in package.
Are we competing with other people's?
Yeah.
No, of course, yeah.
And too, Rod, I think
Statewide.
a lot of the rail too, there are propositions for rail that are much grander and greater and starting from inception that have evolved because of the logistic challenges of over the road, the e-logs, the lack of being able to find drivers, those kind of things. So we have other areas that are looking for bigger projects that would connect viable logistical challenges. Ours is favorable because it's little and it does serve a greater purpose based on the overall anticipated expense. But we are very much competing with this throughout the Northeast because there is a huge logistical challenge for all of us.
I guess where would we be on a pecking order if it'd be competitive wise? What would put you over the top to let you be on a priority list for these grants?
Prepared when I submit my application.
And it already exists.
Yeah.
You said gives you a 60%.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
Whatever,
mean, that
bump up or something.
catapults, yeah,
They put you ahead and lead of the pack, put you ahead of the.
yes. And not knowing what the other submissions are coming in out of state for the Northeast.
Mhm.
I mean, the Northern Border Regional Council covers a huge area, so it's just better understanding where some of that.
Okay.
And the federal and state money hasn't come together like this
And
in a long
like
time.
forever,
And
yeah.
it's here now.
Okay. Mike, anything?
I think we should do it. I think an argument could be made that we're not doing our job if we don't know what we have there, what it would take to get it activated, what funding sources are out there. So I think it's something we should be doing for sure.
I agree with Mike, and I understand Andrea's objection, but.
Oh, I understand that too.
Completely, but at the same time, time is of the essence.
I just don't know what I'm
Andrew?
voting on. I don't have it in front of me. I don't have the document in front of me that I can approve to hire this company. I don't have it.
But I thought it was explained, I mean,
I don't have it. I'm a lawyer. I don't rely upon people's explanations.
well, it's on the
I
record.
read it.
It's on the record. It's on the record.
I read 8
You read
pages
the
of
minutes. You read the minutes too.
I read the document. This goes back to April 12th of 2019, so.
Right, he's going to hold the
Yeah,
price.
he's-
Yeah.
Hold
yeah.
the price.
So the scope, everything's the same, just the timing's different.
Right. I just don't know what I'm voting on.
Okay, well, maybe we can talk about that, what we're voting on. We're voting on to pay for a feasibility study for approximately 14,000 and change.
Mhm.
I don't know the exact number, but
820.
to explore the development of that rail spur, which would promote the use of the industrial park, increase the opportunity for economic development in the town of Monroe.
As well as,
And importantly, the rail spur we own.
The wheel.
yeah, and identifying what impact that may have on the existing businesses on and around that rail line and how that helps, with the retention of that for a northern.
Does it also include the cost of building the rail?
That is not fully in there, but working with Aaron from the AGFTC, he has a retainer with CHA that he's willing to use to get that engineering and the cost of the rail rebuilt out on
So
that
we would know
end.
the cost. Now, I'm assuming everybody knows that rail we got, bed we got for nothing is worth $1 million now. You don't know me very well.
You're on the record.
But you're
I'm on
voting
the
to-
record for a lot worse. But the idea that we could support something like that allows us to understand the economic benefits and the cost related. Pretty,
You're updating a comprehensive report that's just dated.
Right.
So the bones are already there. Des Moines is going to come in and they're going to readdress it. There's more, the population is more dense now and all the other things that are going to affect the details and numbers and stuff. That's what you're voting for, to update that
The
report.
other thing that's important to note is the fact that, Tori, we have a nugget that's not in there, and that is, okay, what's a new rail going to cost? And the one thing helps, I'm the co-chair of the planning committee for the organization that you're referring to. Todd is a member of the policy committee. All right, so to go forward to the policy committee with one of its members requesting funding, for furtherance of that, we have that handshake type thing that, yeah, we can go forward with this. So we do have we have a source there that's saying, okay, there's federal planning funds available to do this. It's just to button that up, wrap it up. And then again, it comes into that process for the actual, I want to say demolition, because you're going to have to remove rail. Then there's salvage in that, and then there's going to have to be removal of, the whole stuff for reconstructing that area. And that we're looking at to pick up as a tip part. So that would wind up with not the IDA as a sponsor on that, but the town of Monroe So that
read through and to multitask while I was listening to Michael Valentine. So this is a proposal for a $14,820 budget by Rob Cameo.
Cameo.
How do I say his name? The site visits, 1 to 2 site visits within 3 months of notice to proceed. So looks like it's a summary of what they would present to us for the feasibility for this rail spur that we own. And there's a budget and a schedule here also that totals up to the $14,820. So there's enough. I would just recommend that the resolution recite in it that is pursuant to the proposal dated April 12, 2018, and not to exceed $14,820.
Would you like to make that as a
I'll make that
motion?
motion.
Second?
I'll second. We may just want to add and approve the chairman
Oh, I
to
have
sign it.
home. I have it in my desk drawer, in my file cabinet.
Second.
Sorry, Mike, I didn't hear you.
And approve the chairman to sign the new
The new proposal.
proposal.
Any further discussion?
I would, one thing I wanted to mention is that I would also ask Rob to maybe mention in that delineation at the very end, other funding sources that might be available.
Okay, the expenditure to,
Approve the
14
expenditure, approve the chairman's signature.
yes, $14,820.
That'll just come out of our general operating account, right?
Do we have enough money?
What's in the account now?
$1,060,000.
Okay.
Too many digits.
I know. So,
Round it up.
All in favor?
aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Andrea. Thank you.
Mike, the proposal requires you to walk the line with them.
Thank you. As soon as,
I'll go with you, Mike. I want to
Would,
see what this is.
You don't want to walk there right
Get
away.
a new
bring my
update on
snowshoes.
the proposal from Camoin and get it to, well, I'm across the street,
Okay,
so I can sign that.
thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Supervisor, thank you very much for
Thank you.
your time.
Okay, thanks.
Good luck with
Have a good day.
Yeah, good luck.
Yep, thank you.
it. Okay,
Be a very good thing. So, you know, the one thing, and I said this to Tori the other day, but I didn't want to reiterate it as an emphasis, but with the town of Monroe as a sponsor on a TIP project, they also have funding they've got to put into that as a match. So I know in our thoughts going by is, okay, what's the town got into it or something? They will have money into it of their own as a sponsor of the TIP application.
Does the proposal cover the spur going into the village, or is it just the portion that?
I think it was only addressed to the Monroe Industrial
Yeah.
Park for that spur.
okay, status of projects, Mike?
Don't really have anything on that one as far as the status. We've had the 3 closings that we had in 2019. Those ones I've got to get construction completion reports from them. It's another thing at the end of the year. They're due by the end of February to say, okay, how did employment numbers, construction numbers, what suppliers, vendors, and contractors did you use in your project? So that's my next thing in order on these projects. Terminations is the fact that we just the bills we just sent as a pilot is the last pilot bill for Fortress Partners. They're 1 year past the end of their abatement period, but Mike has worked with their attorney, and they have done a transfer of the title, but we had pilot billings for them to still do because that change doesn't take place until March rule change. Upcoming closings, we don't have any reconveyances, don't have any assignments, nothing there with that.
Okay,
So,
all right. Any questions of Mike at this point? No.
no,
None.
I had
No,
I had
good,
down
good.
No,
Good.
Brad. So now I heard that.
That's true. Now, if he can drop these color cards when he's doing the rail spur, so he can find his way back.
Great, my tap and then-
Um,
I'm like,
Mike Tui, one question though, another business, that a letter that the easement for Arnoff,
Yes.
was there a question on that?
Yeah.
Did they ever get back to you?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, they did.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
There's an easement going through their land, and they one of the utility companies would like to have it, and Arnoff wanted us to be the front end parties to execute this easement. Well, it's not our land. It's
Right.
we're the gentleman at
Yeah.
Arnoff is that I'm sure that we'd be willing to execute whatever you get executed, so that we understand that you, the company, are in favor of this. It's not our determination to make that decision for you. There were a lot of questions, and I didn't suggest, but I was thinking that we don't represent Arnoff. Arnoff's got their own attorneys that they should be contacting with regard to whether or not this is a viable choice. I don't think they have any choice in it because it brings a power source that they need, but it's not our determination to make.
I
That's
got a
right.
call, I talked to Craig Arnoff yesterday, and he called me. They are looking at another project over there, and they're gonna need more power.
Right.
So I did tell him and referred your discussion and emails
Yeah.
that MJ Properties is the one that they need to get that signature from.
Yeah.
You know, they're the ones who, we're not gonna give away an easement. They
Right,
are.
right,
Yeah.
okay.
You may sign it as a lessee, right?
Right.
This agency, but then Arnoff will sign it and NYSEG will sign it.
And
they'll
and
put
what
it in.
Jim said, and I said in that email, the key player for them to have a check off before they do any of this is their lender. The lender is giving up
They might not wanna give it
rights
away.
with
Yeah.
regard to property that they own.
Mike, that
I
gets
don't
one.
think, I see any
It's
reason
passed
why,
around.
I don't see any reason why they wouldn't do it.
Just, I thought when you passed a letter around regarding the contributions to CEG. I just thought we had a very interesting presentation from CEG. We're part of this, the Saratoga County is integral part of this 8-county region that's been designated by the state of New York as a region. And I thought it was a very compelling presentation about the importance of working within the region and with other people. So I just would like to know, maybe there's reasons beyond my comprehension as to why funding was pulled for that membership from the county, but maybe that's something for our next meeting we could discuss whether we would be interested as an organization in making a contribution to CEG. I would argue that it's consistent with our economic development mission, and we've already said we've contributed $500, and maybe this is worthy of a discussion. $1,000. So if it's 1,000 and there's a shortfall because of concerns at the county level, and I understand that, budgetary reasons, perhaps it's something we might be able to think about. That's all, just discuss more than anything else.
Yeah, and now that the county pulled out, what are we getting for just the
The $1,000.
$1,000.
So $5,000. Okay. So-
Did you renew for
Yes.
this?
Yes, we did. We did.
And
Yes.
the county chose not to.
Yeah. So, well, again, it's a discussion. I'd like to talk about it at our next meeting.
I won't be here.
Then we won't talk about it.
I have a trial that day.
By the way, the
At
Capital
9.
District
I think
Information Center on the Thruway, Saratoga County is very, very prominently represented in that rest area. Yeah, it's amazing. I visited for the first time yesterday.
What rest area?
It's a brand new rest area on the Thruway. It's a Capital Region Visitors Center.
Oh, the
They have a
$4
little
million
restaurant
rest
and
area?
stuff. Yeah.
Which one is that?
It's one
south.
right before Albany. It's right
Well, you
across
should-
from the
you
one
should
that was
cross over.
southbound.
You should go, yeah.
The past around, I give you just the, Andrew, you're the only one here who, I just wanted to give you the update on the resolutions and
Yep.
the appointments. So I have those. I sent to you an email, the chart as far as if there's anything you see in it, is a transposed number and a phone number or a letter that's wrong in the email, let me know.
I emailed Cindy yesterday because you've got my cell number as my office number, and I gave her my cell number to put in there.
Okay.
It's actually my office number.
Oh, that 66, you're right,
Yeah.
664 is an office.
I just have two things. We talked about it before about doing an escrow for legal fees to cover Jim's
Yep.
expense. Is that something that maybe the finance committee should talk about? Think about, do an escrow up front?
An escrow.
Well,
What do you
like these projects that don't go through, like, the gentleman that was here this morning, we did all that, Jim did all that work and
Oh.
brought it to fruition. And
What
then,
isn't just an application, I mean, so that
I thought
we,
Jim was going to just submit
The bill.
the bill. and-
No, yeah, something. If the
Oh, does it
projects
come-
don't
oh, I
move
see,
in
I see,
in addition to that,
yeah.
to cover that,
Cover-
to cover the
cover-
concern that we'd
Oh,
be,
okay.
hey, listen, he just did a lot of work. And
Right.
what the ideation, we should be, at least the applicant should suffer some of the injury for that.
Well, the
For,
250 is the lowest around in
Yeah.
any IDA
Yeah.
as far as application fee.
I don't know, so I just think about when I was town attorney in Stillwater, anybody that came into the planning board with an
Yeah.
application got hit with an escrow for engineering fees.
right,
What's your current application? fee?
250.
250.
Most of them
Yeah,
are
that's
1,000.
really low.
That's low.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if it goes through, that could be
Right.
credited
Cre- yeah,
toward
right.
your overall
Right,
fee,
right.
but if it doesn't go
Right.
through, that's money they forfeit.
that's
and
right.
Jim gets
I-
paid.
That's what I.
So what, so
think.
I think it's a great idea.
I had no
mean,
idea. I looked to Jim for
It's something that's not
recommendations.
too
Owners, yeah.
500? I don't know.
Yeah, I haven't.
Well, or maybe look at the
Just
other
the bills,
counties, the
Right,
other
the state's
agencies.
part of the state.
Right,
map,
right.
that's all.
It varies depending upon how far they move forward before they die.
Right.
And,
Well,
I don't
for
know if you
example-
want to try to cover 100% of that, but I think your application fees are unusually low.
And maybe we could just put it out there for discussion when we have a full board.
Yeah, like I know
Sure.
that,
Just
in
keeping
Clifton
the idea
Park, I
alive,
can't
so it
go
doesn't cost us
$750.
You're right.
But
anything.
Most of the counties
but
will do
they're
1,000.
relying maybe Mike and Jim to
Yeah.
do a little poll, informal polling
Yeah.
Right.
of what's out
Check
there.
around.
Yeah, Scott will look at
Yeah,
that.
we should
Okay.
look at how we
Okay.
do it too. And
Yeah.
you may not want to do it as a escrow, just a general
Just
fee.
collecting more
Fee,
money
right.
up front.
It's
Just a fee.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
a non-refundable fee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Just putting it out for discussion
Yeah.
purposes.
It'll be on next month's
Yeah.
agenda.
no,
We've
so
only
we should
had one
definitely address that.
person that had an application that didn't go through, wanted his money back, and that was Yuri. And we only had 3 applications
Oh, boy.
by him, so.
Yeah, right.
Keep going forever.
Wow.
All I would ask is that the next time you're gonna put something on the agenda that's not on the agenda, that you let us know, because as you know, I read everything. If I know it's gonna be on the agenda, I'm gonna read it.
This was down here
Yeah.
as an
I didn't see
agenda
it.
item.
You
Yeah,
gotta
so
read
it's-
it, you gotta read it,
I
Andrea.
read through it.
It's down there under,
Okay.
what's the
Well, it's not
project
on mine.
updates, SEDC.
Where is it?
Working on college.
It's right there.
Really?
It's there.
Figure it out.
I got
Okay.
a study,
But
I
it
don't,
wasn't here.
oh, it wasn't, I don't have it.
Yeah.
This is the study on reuse of rail
Gotta
to
really get
row.
older.
It doesn't
So
say we're gonna vote on
get
it.
it. Oh, no, yeah. It
Didn't
was,
say we're gonna vote on it. I had
it
no
was a
idea what that
presentation.
meant.
I read it as a presentation.
Oh, I didn't know who it was.
Yeah.
We're gonna do.
And I have one last thing, in the never-ending discussion, if we could continue the dialogue even for a few minutes about the length of the minutes,
Oh.
I mean, I don't read them when they're that long. I mean,
Yeah.
I'll be very candid with you. Maybe you do, Andrea, but when they turn into page after page after page, I was there at the meeting. And I think we should have a discussion about some way, and look to council for some suggestions there that'll accomplish our objectives of having a record of the meeting, but without having to, spend
What
extraordinary amount of time.
about quick bullets that would mirror the agenda so that you could go back and just say, okay, that was the agenda, and then here's a bullet point, here's what was discussed, and then
I mean, there's
Next.
the range of,
Someone who's
right,
gonna
either
edit that.
short form resolution, I mean, the shortest of short, or something.
I mean, the
I
only
don't-
thing I will say is that there have been times where having detailed minutes have come back to benefit us. when
Great
we're
history.
Trying to look
Yeah.
back and
One of the
figure
things
out-
you could do is have the detailed minutes and then have somebody do a summary of the
Summary,
detailed
yeah.
minutes.
Or just the recording and the summary. That's what we do at our board.
Yeah.
So
Right.
the recording you have forever.
Recording, yeah.
You can go back
Right.
Yeah.
20 years, you have
Yeah.
a recording.
But
Now we have this.
But as Jim says, is to have a copy of the minutes, they're a great, you can use a research tool. They're just,
I mean, I'm not arguing,
But this,
not just saying read it. I was saying if you had the summary, fine, but if you had the paper
Yes.
minutes rather than the,
right.
a recording that it's problematic getting to anybody who wants it at that time, you know?
I mean, there's a lot of ways to accomplish it. but-
Yeah.
Anything else?
Continue. LFTC, any status, any
updates.
update? No, same.
Nothing,
Okay,
same.
good.
All right, motion to adjourn.
I just,
Motion.
did you set a March date?
Oh, I'm sorry,
The
March,
10th?
March the 10th would be our next meeting date.
So we're gonna do this one at
8:30?
9 o'clock so we can blow off most of the room.
That sounds like a motion. Second that.
All right.
Pat
And I'll-
seconds that.
I'll check to see, and I'll let everybody know whether we can use the room next door.
Okay,
Thank
Thank you.
Regular
Both
date, right?
sides. Yes.
Paying attention.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll move.
Thank you.
Second.
All
All right. Thank you, folks.
Have a great day, Andrew.
Yeah.
Can you turn that?
Andrew, I gotta, before you leave,
Seven.
I was, you gotta listen to this. And if you ever, I'm